Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, the audience discretion is advised. Hello, passengers. Welcome back to Travelers on the Omnibus, where we take a field trip into nerd and pop culture. I am your driver for this lovely evening, morning, or afternoon for you. My name is Ethan Skinner, and I welcome you.
I'm trying to drink a Coca-Cola Zero, so come back to me.
I have passengers with me.
I'm just trying to
We're
figure...
fucking travelers, motherfucker!
Travelers, passengers.
We got we do have a live studio audience, so it'd be passengers.
That
I
is
apologize.
very true.
Yes.
I apologize for that. There you go.
I'm just sitting here trying to wonder, trying to figure out if Ethan is old enough to have his CDL license to drive this bus.
Oh, God, no. They should not have given it to me.
21's good for CDO.
What happened to our other bus driver?
We don't talk about him.
Is this Spinal Tap?
That was the drummers.
Yeah.
The drummers kept dying.
Oh, you're next.
Hi, I'm James McCarthy, by the way.
I'm Brady Davis.
I'm Jody Kite.
Before we move into our main topic, gentlemen, what have you guys been up to?
Doctor Strange.
Yes.
And the Multiverse of Madness. That covers 3 of the 4 of us.
I think the majority of us, that's the new thing that we did.
Yes.
Y'all talk amongst yourselves, and I'll tell you what I've been doing.
Yeah.
I like the part where Dr. Doom made a wonderful Waldorf salad.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
Yeah.
Galactus made a really nice appearance.
There you go. Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah.
Galactus is actually being played by Patton Oswalt.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
yeah.
he's
I
both.
thought
I
he's
could really
both.
see that, yes.
He's both MODOK and Galactus at
And
the
Pip the
same
Troll.
time. And Pip the Troll.
Yeah, for the 2 people who watched Eternals.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what. If you watch one movie about the multiverse, watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. But if you watch a second one, watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's a decent movie.
My spoiler-free review is, I wish they had called this movie the best of Sam Raimi, starring Doctor Strange. This is a Sam Raimi movie through and through. Like, this isn't like,
Which is not a bad thing.
this isn't
Yeah,
like
I love me some Sam Raimi.
a Chloe Zhao Eternal situation where like Chloe Zhao's style like showed a little bit, but then it got overmoted by being a Marvel movie. This is a perfect blending of Marvel and Sam Raimi.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I very much left the theater very satisfied, but also slightly confused just because of what the events that leading up to the end.
Yeah, there's weird shit that happens.
Yes.
It's okay.
Were you unable to find your car?
No,
Were you
I
that
found
confused.
No, I found it very easily.
Okay, then it wasn't that bad.
How many Sam Raimi super zoom Dutch angles were there in the movie?
Many.
There's no way to count. It is a multiverse.
Yes, it's a multiverse.
A lot of this movie plays out like a horror movie.
Hell yeah.
I'll go one further. It's kind of slasher film at one point.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. VIP to me of the movie was Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. She is phenomenal. I love her and everything that she does that I've ever watched her in, but she's really, really good in this.
I was very surprised and happy with Xochitl Gomez.
She was very good too. I wish she had a little bit more to do, and I think that they're trying to move her more to her comic book character's personality in the way she acts, but this was a good introduction, I think.
First minute spoiler, you come into the action in media res. Like it's just happening.
Which is good.
And she's just there. It's like, what the hell?
Like she's not explained on what she's doing there in the beginning, and then something pivotal happens. Like, what in the world is happening? I'm confused.
Yeah, but it's a good movie. It's one of the better
Solid
Marvel
movie,
movies
yes.
of the last few years. Probably in my opinion, the best one of the past few years. Yeah,
There hasn't been many high recommended Marvel films in the past couple.
No Way Home was good, but like
that's true.
It's more of a
Spider-Man kind of contained, sort of.
It's more of a here's some moments that we think you'll like, and here's kind of a good closing for these other franchises that has happened.
I will say,
whereas this is more of a movie, of an actual, full-on movie.
My brother showed me something that Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness is just Evil Dead 4 in a Marvel shell.
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah. But that concluded the 3 of us. Jody, what have you been up to?
So recently I read the Japanese horror writer and artist Junji Ito, his work called Gaio.
I was about to say Spiral, but
No,
yeah, okay.
I haven't read Uzumaki all the way through. I still need to finish that. Gaio starts where this couple is vacationing at a beach house in Okinawa, off the coast of Okinawa, and this guy's girlfriend is very sensitive to smells, and she's like, I can smell something. It smells like rotting fish, and he's like, you're making it up, whatever. And then a few panels later, I should say, a rotting fish emerges from the ocean with what looks like mechanical legs attached to it, almost like in a Geiger Lovecraftian horror looking thing.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah, that's Junji. That's Junji Ito,
right.
yeah.
And of course, that's just the beginning. So what's scarier than a shark? A shark with robotic legs that's also a zombie shark.
Yeah.
And this isn't like, if you ever want to read it, this isn't really much of a spoiler to find out like how because it doesn't look like these machines are powered by anything. They're actually powered by the gas of the rotting corpse.
Ew.
So again, this is Junji Ito.
Very clever. I like that.
Yeah. Along with some other stuff. So it gets really fucked up, only in a Junji Ito kind of way.
Yeah.
And so, of course, since they're a zombie fish, there has to be some sort of infection. And oh man, it's dark.
Yeah.
All right.
I wouldn't expect any less from Junji Ito.
Right. Apparently, they made a anime film out of it. I'm gonna check that out. But the manga, the manga was pretty grotesque. I like it. I love Ito, man. It's good stuff. Tomei.
Sounds very exciting. From everything that you've discussed with us on how you do your own kind of research into horror.
What does he research for? What thing in particular?
It must be about his Fearology podcast.
There you
We're
go.
getting these out of the way early.
No, we're just gonna. We're doing it again.
We're
but-
doing it in case shit falls apart towards the end again. Okay.
We're gonna
Well,
actually.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Super secret surprise.
I received mini Tupperwares filled with blood.
Yes.
We're
from the
recording a
last
Fearology episode right now. No, I'm
Lots
kidding.
But,
We need to do that one time.
Yeah.
We need to as we're recording Travelers, we need to just go straight into
hard
a
cuts.
Fearology.
We are talking about
doing-
Psycho.
We're
There
going to
you
do
go.
Podception.
You spoiled it, even though they saw the
Spoilers.
title.
That's
But,
very
yeah,
true.
it's like- there you go.
Before we get into the main topic of Psycho, Jay, do we have any passenger feedback?
We
here
do.
lately?
However, if you'd like to send us passenger feedback, that is at travelersontheomnibus@gmail.com. Again, travelersontheomnibus, all one word, at gmail.com. We're always about the feedback here. We actually have some feedback this week as opposed from last week where the passengers no, everything's cool. We don't need to tell them shit. But they told us some shit this week. This comes from a good friend of the podcast, Jason Kennedy, a.k.a. Hat, a.k.a. Siggy. Was catching up on Travelers, and y'all discussed game systems-wise on a 1 to 100 scale. There was no examples of where you were putting the existing systems. This goes back to our Build a Better RPG episode, where we were talking about what do we like as far as complexity and simplicity in our rules as far as RPG systems goes. And that he does bring up a good point, just kind of threw the number out there and where we fall on
Yeah,
more
we had some
simplicity.
arbitrary numbers out there.
Yeah.
So let me just throw out a few systems and see where you guys think they would fall on a 1 to 100 scale. Again, 1 is the simplest, 100 is the most complex. Let's start D&D 5th edition.
I would honestly have to say D&D would have to be a solid 50.
Just in the middle.
40, 50.
I think it's
probably.
lower than 50, Ethan. I played 3.5. I would say 3.5 is probably around 60 to 70. And I would say that 5th edition is probably around 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, my problem is 5th edition is the only edition of D&D that I've played, so that's the only thing that
just
I
a
can
real quick, example of those two systems. They're completely different from each other. In 3.5, every level or so, depending on what you class and what race you pick, you got a feat, right? So if you're a ranger, there was 10 different feats to do with shooting arrows, right? Shot on the run, mini shot, so forth and so on. In 5th edition, you don't get feats that often, but they're all in one package.
Yeah.
Right, so you don't have to go through all the minutia of trying to figure out what to do. Instead of having to figure out numbers for poisons, numbers for flanking, or any of that, which is in 3.5, which you have to do crunching math for, and in fifth edition, it's disadvantage or advantage,
Yeah,
which is
I
either
was
you
just about
roll,
to say.
you roll 2 d20s and either take the highest number or the lowest number, depending on what you're talking about.
Yeah, that took a lot of it out. So what? Probably about like a 40, would say, or
What fifth edition, somewhere between like 30 and 40.
Okay, all
like it's for me.
Next one, Dungeons and Dragons third.
Third edition. I said 3.5 was around what, like 65.
When I'm saying 3, I mean 3 and 3.5.
3 and 3.5, yeah, between 65 and 70.
Okay.
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
85.
See, like Brady, I've only experienced fifth edition, so it's really hard for me to put my own personal scale on a lot of
this does come down to
D&D.
experience.
You played Cypher System though, Ethan. So what would you put Cypher System at?
Cypher System, it's very simple in idea, but going through all the process of making a character, keeping up with everything, is a little taxing a little bit. So
making a character. Okay, go ahead.
1 to 100. Give it a number.
I'd say 35.
35.
I would say 30 to 35. I think like character creation can be overwhelming, but that should not go against the whole entire score hardly at all. I mean, it depends on the game.
I disagree. I think that part in particular, more so than almost anything else, if you can't get a character to the table because the system's kind of getting in the way of you, that's big.
I think the reason for that in Cypher is that for one part of your character creation, there's over 200 options. So if you have a good games master and you say, I want to play this, and the games master has read the book and he goes, I know exactly what you need to do, I'll give you your options without you having to try and read half of the book, I think that also has something to do with it as well. So,
but then again, isn't that adding weight now on the games master in order to be able to, like, you're almost, and forgive me on this because I know this is your favorite set, that seems like you're kind of dictating what the player should be doing.
Well, no. If you want to play an archer, there are 3 obvious choices to make. You don't have to read through all the sections that say how to build bigger, better robots. You know.
I played a Lancer system with my good friend James Stone. Shout out to you, James.
James Stone, thank you very much. Friend of the podcast, we hope, but so what you said, Lancer system?
Yeah, Lancer system. Imagine D&D, but you're given a Gundam suit.
You can just stop. There we go. Yeah. It's D&D Gundam. Simple, complex. Where's the number?
85.
Jesus.
That's rough and rugged.
You have to.
That's like BattleTech numbers.
You have to keep up with everything. Your character skills, and then you also have to go into your mech creation.
Sounds like Rips or Palladium stuff.
Where you have to keep up with all of your mech's HP, your mech's armor, your mech's attacks, what you can do within combat in the mech, what you could do in combat outside the mech.
If I were invested in the setting, like that's one of those things where it's like, okay, I get to customize a whole bunch of stuff like that. Maybe
some people like a lot of number crunch, and that's what it sounds like.
I
was gonna say like you had kind of sold me on it because a few maybe months ago, Time Has No Meaning Anymore, you had mentioned this and it got me intrigued, but you saying that it's an 85 worries me. I am slightly more apprehensive about it.
If you're able to get into it and like slow bleed into it, like I was thrown into it like in the dead center of the campaign.
James Throne.
Yes.
Throne. Haha.
Thrown threw me into a campaign that was already ongoing. I wasn't able to get the beginner's experience and learn the process of a level 1 character as opposed to a level 10 character.
Okay.
So given time that allowed me to begin at the beginner's setting, I probably would love the game.
Well, that could be said about a lot of games, though, given time. Because, I mean, THACO.
2-hit armor class 0, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, that's all we need to say.
We could have a 2-hour dissertation.
Well, I mean, somebody who's not familiar with D&D 5th edition, if you give them a 10th level character, they're not going to do
that's any game system. I would say any game system.
As simple as that one is. That's just what I'm saying.
But at the same time, 5th is, in my opinion, more forgiving than that.
A little bit. Yeah. It's not a 1-to-1 comparison, but it's
something we have to fix with Ethan. You've never done a World of Darkness game. You've never done a D10 system. So I throw to the two gentlemen on the other side of me. World of Darkness, the D10 system.
I would say the dice system itself is fairly simplistic.
Yeah.
That's the most simplistic thing. The game as a whole, a little bit more complicated because you do need to know the nuances between some of the different groups of people that are in that as far as story goes, but as far as just the actual dice mechanics, probably like a 20 on dice mechanics.
The mechanics of the game, yeah. But you do have to, depending on which one you're, like if you're playing vampire, you need to know a little bit about the vampire lore and like the background of some things, or you're gonna make a fool of yourself the
dice system is about as bare bones as you can get.
But the dice system is really is very.
I like dice systems that just have to do with like success and non-success.
Blades in the Dark, and a whole Forged in the Dark line of games like Scum and Villainy.
That one's probably about a 20, I would say. It's not super complex.
So similar to the World
maybe
of
30, maybe in the 30s.
Somewhere 25, 30, because it's 2d6, right? It's just 2d6.
Well, it's D6s.
It's D6s.
Right, okay, gotcha.
And you can get like extra, but maybe you're rolling.
I've only played it once, so I don't really have a dog in the fight when it comes to that.
Maybe you're rolling five at the like at the absolute max, really, especially early on when you when you're starting out. Yeah, but most of the time you're rolling like 2, maybe 3 D6s.
Okay. Anybody got some systems to ask me about?
What about what's that one you have over here? Trinity.
Okay, that's gonna be in the World of Darkness stuff. That's gonna be
that's
modified. It's a modified D10. I would actually put that one like around 15.
Yeah, that one's actually a little bit simpler than,
because the numbers aren't variable. You're always going for the same target number in the old Trinity verse. Now, the story path system that Onyx Path has been doing with them, it's a little bit, just a little bit more complicated.
Yeah,
I would say maybe like towards a 20-25, but still, it's very easy to grok that.
I don't want to go through a bunch of systems. So there's a Cthulhu, depending on what edition.
So we're talking about Call of Cthulhu, the D% system. I will say, just the system, 10. When you start adding in all the stuff you need in order to play a Call of Cthulhu game, it gets it to around 30. There's a D1000 chart for phobias.
Oh, God. Of course
in
there
the
is.
latest edition, which is necessary because you need to be able to go crazy in that game.
And then there's Star Wars.
Yeah, it's Star Wars.
So are we talking the original West End, or are we talking? Okay, that one,
the Fantasy Flight one.
Depending on your person, it's either, and there's no in between here, it's either a 40 or a 70.
Gotcha.
Because if you can't get your head around symbolic dice rather than numbered dice,
right,
you're going to have a problem.
Because it comes with its own proprietary.
But I think on the other end of that, the Legend of the Five Rings RPG has its own dice, but that's a lot simpler.
That one, that one's more to me like a 30-60.
Yeah.
It's like, again, it's not as complicated as the Genesis, which the Star Wars system evolved into the Genesis system. It's not as complicated, but it's symbolic dice.
Yeah.
And some people, like, I've sat people down to Legend of the Five Rings, and they were like, can I just have like some regular D6s and D8s? Because they just feel more comfortable with numbers.
One thing I want to interject before we go to our main topic here is that Monty Cook Games, Monty Cook created Numenera, created the Cypher system, used to work for Wizards of the Coast many, many years ago. He makes source books for both 5th edition, campaign books for both 5th edition and for his own Cypher system.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're the same book with just different rule sets. So I would say
I've seen that on like Kickstarters.
So I would say that those two games both probably have about close to the same entry point, around the 30 mark, I think, for 5th edition and for Cypher / Numenera.
You two have played this one, and maybe not have played it enough to really get a good sense of it, because I'm a terrible person at running games. But what about City of Mist?
Oh, that's like 25.
Okay.
Like, I like the idea that traits give you bonuses, and then you roll your dice based off of those bonuses.
When you get into like more things where you're getting a lot of statuses. Well, even then, like statuses, you're only ever taking like your highest status as a negative. So, but like figuring some of that's a little bit more. I think for the players, that's a little bit less than the game master, because the way like adding statuses and combining those and different things, that's a little bit more complicated. I think that gets more into maybe a 40 or a 60.
There is also something to be said about the front end experience of the player and the back end experience of the game master. There are some games that are actually easy to game master for. For instance, I think third ed is a lot easier to game master for than fifth ed because so much of it is spelled out for you. However, because so much is spelled out,
Right.
throwing that on a player
Yeah.
makes it harder on the player.
I'd have to agree with you on that, Jay.
Okay.
Like 100%.
Just hearing stories from one of my D&D friends. He's coming from 3.5 into 5th edition, and he's totally had to relearn a lot of the concepts.
Oh yeah, because everything's completely different in a lot of ways. So.
All right. So again, Jason Kennedy, thank you for your feedback. We greatly appreciate that. And again, as always, travelersontheomnibus@gmail.com.
And while you're emailing us, you could also find us at on these wonderful podcast sites, such as Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts.
You missed one. You missed one.
I'm missing one?
Yes.
Anchor.
There you go.
Yes. Again, you can find us at those podcasts and also give us passenger feedback at your discretion. And thank you for listening.
Yeah, you can also give it to us on Spotify. You can message us directly on Spotify.
Yes.
Yes. We also have polls on all of our. There are polls on all of the episodes, and you can vote on the things that I allow you to vote for, like the American political system. Anyway, we're going to continue to go on.
Politics aside, we are.
I may put all of that in echo just to make an even bigger farce out of it.
Yeah, you might have to do that.
There you go.
Just like our American political system.
Politics aside, gentlemen, we are driving by a movie theater, and that movie theater is just so happening to show Psycho.
This is a fancy movie theater.
Yes.
There you go.
For those of you,
Does it have the heated chairs?
maybe if
Someone
stop
needs to
and
be
find out.
twirling a
This is,
mustache working in
we
this
have-
place.
Do we find an Alamo Draft House?
Does it have the Cheetos popcorn, which is just popcorn and Cheetos mixed together?
Speaking of the Cheetos popcorn,
that sounds terrible.
It's
Shut the fuck! No, you lies.
it's half and half. You can,
It's half
sounds-
Cheetos, half popcorn.
you
sounds
take it or you
really
leave it.
bad.
Honestly,
You take it or you leave it. Probably leave it.
Yeah.
No, take it.
I'm sure.
Take it up the. Never mind.
I'm sure
I don't do snacks at a theater.
Well,
I pay my money for the movie. I watch the
I'm
movie.
with Brady on
I
this.
gotta.
I leave.
I gotta have my chos.
With maybe a piss somewhere in there.
I gotta
Yeah.
have my chos, man. I gotta have my nachos.
We're getting passenger feedback. The Cheetos popcorn is a plus from our passenger.
Oh,
As-
there you go.
Take your word for it.
We have a no-name passenger, ladies and gentlemen, coming to you live. It is Bob Shinedown. Everyone, Bob Shinedown is
Bob
in the
Shinedown!
Bob Shinedown is in the theater tonight. Thank you very much. There you go. I have derailed this enough. Ethan, if that's your real name, continue.
So, for those of you that do not know this 62-year-old movie, Psycho is directed, produced, and also starred by Alfred Hitchcock.
I think starred might be a little bit of a stretch there.
Cameoed.
Barely cameoed for like 5 seconds outside of a building.
If I'm not mistaken, Hitchcock in pretty much all of his movies.
Yeah, he's like the Stan Lee of horror.
He had more. I think he had more in Birds than anything else.
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock was real sexy in that shower scene.
Oh yeah.
Love the cut of your jib, Allie.
Thank you.
But yes, Psycho was released in 1960. It was starred. It has Anthony Perkins, Vera Miles, John Gavin. Sorry, Mr. Gavin, Martin Balsam, John McIntyre, and Janet Leigh. The movie starts with a lady and a man in an apartment in not New York City, in Arizona.
Oh yeah, it is in
A
Arizona.
lady and a man.
There is
Yes.
to be fair.
A lady and a man.
To be fair, I've been to New York. I've been to Flagstaff. Totally different cities. Totally
You-
different.
Really couldn't tell it from watching.
There were more coyotes in one. I will leave it to your imagination which one.
In the
had it.
movie, it was very hard to tell. I doubt that they shot in Arizona. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. They seem to be very hot a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Well, that's because Janet Leigh was on screen most of the time.
Very
There you go.
true.
There you go.
Yes. But yes, Marion Crane and Sam Loomis. We see them in the beginning.
Janet Leigh.
We see a little bit of some
Jamie
kind
Lee
of
Curtis's mother.
Ooh, interesting facts. We see a little bit of
I'm
connection
full of them.
Thanks for your input, Brady.
So last week, there was an appeal during the Shinedown incident where
Is that just what we're going to call it from now on?
we're calling it the
Shinedown incident.
where someone expressed very vulnerably that that album got them through very tough times. It was a form of succor, SUCCOR. I was an English major and I need to use these words, or else that $20,000 I still owe the federal government is going to be not worth it. So there was a want, a desire, a need to destroy the person who loved the Shinedown album.
There was no want, desire, or need to destroy.
I looked at your script. The script says otherwise. However, out of interest and really just kind of like our fellow man, interest in our fellow man being happy. It didn't go that far.
Yes.
Went a little bit. Now
I thought I had a friend, but instead I have a co-podcasty.
Oh, we got our answer. We were asking that question earlier.
Then.
Yeah, there you go.
Well then.
There you go.
Ethan's still friends with us. And,
So
that's the answer.
now we're just professionals.
Yeah.
Apparently.
We were never friends. We were always just acquaintances.
So-
It's nothing personal. It's
Passing
just
through
business.
So like
ships in the night.
So like professionals could be. I'm gonna say this right now. You hosting tonight, Ethan.
I am.
Don't fuck up.
A lady and a man are in a hotel room.
in a hotel
Don't
room.
fuck
yes.
up. Your brother's here to whoop your ass. I'm just saying. You thought you brought him here. We brought him here.
Tell him
Yeah.
that.
Don't tell him. Oh, he's popping his knuckles.
Knuckles cracking.
Oh, Jesus.
But no, we start the movie with Marion Crane and Sam Loomis in a hotel room. We see that there's a little bit of a connection between them.
A little bit.
A love interest between
Scandalous.
They know each other in the biblical
Yes.
sense.
Very scandalous.
the two. We see a connection.
Yeah.
We just
then-
don't see the connection. This is the 60s.
Yeah,
That's very true.
A connection. Yes.
We see them right after a Meatloaf song.
Yes.
Yes. We then go on to see Marianne go into work. She appears to work at a financial office. She is given a task by her boss to deposit a large sum of money, $40,000, into the bank.
$40,000 in 1960 money.
In
Which is-
cash.
In cash.
In
Pure
cash.
cash.
Which
Right.
is like $1 million today.
I'll kill
something
one of
like
you
that.
right now for $40,000.
Don't
Yeah.
don't glaze
Yeah.
over the creepy old man
Yeah,
that was
plus
buying the
the old man
property.
was like super creepy.
Weird old man.
Like saying creepy things for the 60s. Like,
He's like, I've got money. I just bought a house. How about you?
yeah.
I'm buying my second house.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm going to make the first interjection and the third,
first interjection.
The third no, but like legitimately talking about the movie. You think 1960? Again, erase any idea of the history of this movie. You think that's going to be the Psycho? Like this creepy weird old man. She's got his money and
Yeah.
like this motherfucker's going to like do some weird shit and like he's a bad guy.
And you'd expect him to be the Psycho because instead of Miss Crane depositing the money like a good assistant she is, she instead runs away with it. She ditches town. She gets in her vehicle and she heads to California. From then we see her just sweating in her car on the way to California. She's being kind of stalked by an Arizona policeman.
Well, I mean, not stalked. I mean, he's
No, like
doing
she-
his job.
He's just doing his
Well,
job. Like she's
He
trying to
starts
trade
out
off.
doing his job, but
And it gets
that's
a little weird.
Really weird.
Yeah.
It does get a little weird.
He
Yes.
follows her a lot.
And then
Yeah.
you think, well, maybe that's the Psycho.
yeah.
Yes.
Could have been.
No, we're 0 for 2 on Psychos.
Yep.
We quickly see him get out of the picture. A forethought. And
Well, before we see him cut out of the picture, he witnesses her trade in her car for another car while he's following her.
yes,
Yeah, and immediately pays cash for it.
Right.
So she's wanting to leave no tracks at all to wherever she's going. And one night as she's driving, it starts to rain, like rain cats and dogs. She can barely see through her windshield. In the distance, she pulls over, and she sees the Bates Motel sign with vacancy.
Yep.
She decides to pull in, and she is greeted by Norman Bates, the runner and owner of the Bates Motel. And reluctantly, she gets a room. She gets a room
Well,
coincidentally.
let's slow down for just a second. Before she sees Norman, she hears a conversation right from the house between him and his mother.
Oh yeah, because she gets out and there's nobody in the motel, but she
Right.
sees the house in the distance.
And they're sort of like arguing, and then she sees Norman come out of the house towards the hotel, and that's when they meet, and then they go inside, and she talks to him about getting a room.
yeah,
Yes.
and
And
he's
he-
very awkward.
And he looks at room key number 2, but hands her room key number 1.
Room number 1 is coincidentally right beside the hotel office.
And hotel office's parlor.
She goes into the room. She relaxes a little bit. She makes sure that she hides the money so that way she doesn't think anyone's gonna find her and take the money and do something.
She wraps it up in a newspaper.
Wraps it in a newspaper, leaves it on the bedside table, and a few minutes go by, and she's visited by Norman Bates again, and offers her sandwiches for dinner. And instead of eating in her room, he decides to take them into the office parlor. They have a very, at the beginning, they have a very mutual conversation, trying to get to know each other a little bit more. So Norman,
My favorite scene in the movie.
That is
This
a
is my
very,
number
very
one
good
favorite
scene.
It
scene.
starts
it is a very
Talking
memorable-
about taxidermy and why he
That
likes
is one of the best scenes.
stuff.
Like,
stuffing
the
animals.
interchange between the two of them is perfect. It's set. You know there's something wrong with him.
It sets a tone.
You don't know
Yes.
what exactly is wrong with him because he's giving you truths, but later you're going to find out that that's skewed through a mirror. Like it is so well done. Anthony Perkins just
Anthony
completely
Perkins is
controls that scene.
so great in this.
And for her part, Janet Leigh also is this very attentive. Like she's paying attention, but as you know, like she goes through a gamut of emotions through that entire thing.
Yes.
And there's so many like some of like well-known quotes in this. You know, everybody goes a little mad sometimes. Oh, my mother, she's as harmless as these stuffed birds.
And
you know?
also, at that point, pretty much soon when she got to the hotel, she had already decided that she was going to be driving back whenever she could in the morning because she had to wait for the rain to slack up and give the money back. That was her plan.
Yep. And as this conversation in the parlor goes on, Miss Crane starts to get a little uncomfortable with Norman. And
Well, the conversation elevates to a point where it starts becoming uncomfortable.
yeah.
And so she decides to exclude herself, get ready for bed, and so on so forth, and leaves the parlor and goes to her room.
And this is the point where you said,
Yeah.
should I?
Yeah, I literally turned to the gentleman and said, "Should I be worried about Norman Bates? Because he's really giving me off vibes."
And Jay goes, watch the movie.
Watch the movie.
Watch the movie.
And then as soon as I say that, and I turn my head to the TV, we see Norman Bates take off one of the paintings on the wall and expose a little peephole into the number 1 room and see Miss Crane undress as she's getting ready to take a shower.
Everything about that scene sets that stage so
Oh,
perfectly.
yeah.
Yeah.
We find out who the real psycho is.
No,
Well,
we really
no,
don't.
No, we don't.
We really
no,
don't.
we don't.
I will say this. The shot of him in the chair is done with the camera below him so that it's looking up at him,
Right.
which makes him taller.
And
It
the
makes
light
him
shadow.
it makes him more menacing. It is, you don't, like, it's one of those things, Mike Staklasa from Red Letter Media says it best. You don't see it, but your brain does.
Right.
And because your brain sees it, it becomes this revelation that slowly just like kind of unravels in your brain. And just, it's perfect storytelling. Absolutely perfect storytelling.
Yes. And then it gets to the iconic shower scene in Psycho. We see her turn the water on. We see her take off her robe and step in the shower. She's starting to wetten herself. I don't like myself saying.
Yeah, that's
that.
a really weird.
Yeah.
That's
I
a real.
don't like that.
That's a
either.
real Norman Batesy way to say that.
Yeah, this had an effect on you.
Yeah.
Ugh, I didn't like that at all.
Oh, also, a little bit before this, she writes a letter and then she writes some stuff down and then
Yes.
tears it up.
She's writing down
this
how
is-
much money she spent.
Yes.
This is the first time that a flushing toilet was ever shown in a movie.
Yes.
So much so that during the trailer for the movie, Alfred Hitchcock is in the toilet. Very important piece of information was found there. Ghastly. And it was like
Yeah,
it's completely Alfred Hitchcockian.
Yeah, that note comes into play later. That's a little bit of a Chekhov's
Yes.
gun.
Yeah.
And then we see her as she's taking a shower through the translucent shower curtains.
Opaque.
Opaque. We see the.
I would say translucent because opaque you wouldn't see anything.
Well,
That's true. That's true.
We see the bathroom door start to open, and we see a human figure walk towards the shower. And in an instance, we see the shower curtain thrown to the side. Miss Crane turns to the person, screams, and as the human figure starts stabbing her with a kitchen knife.
The female human silhouette that we see.
Yeah.
Female human silhouette. And we then see Miss Crane slowly slide down the shower wall as she tries to leave the bathtub. She falls on her own weight, pulling the shower curtain,
Popping the curtain off as she
And
falls.
this is a perfect use of implied violence. Like you never actually
See her getting stabbed.
You never actually see her getting stabbed.
Right.
You always see the knife getting very close, but then they cut, and your brain fills in those voids. In fact, when the movie came out, if I'm not mistaken, like he almost got in trouble for a lot of things with the violence, but like when he showed it to him again, they were like, "Oh, you never actually see anything."
Yeah, my mother to the end of her days to say no, that they actually stabbed Janet Leigh in that. Like they don't, they want to like, no, they because I saw the knife go in. No, slow that down as slow as you can. There's never any kind of contact. You never see any cut wounds on her body.
Yep.
You see darkness going into the water and kind of then going down the drain, which was actually, and because I know you're chomping at the bit to say this one, go for it.
Hershey's
Jody.
chocolate syrup.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hershey's. There wasn't even fake blood. And again, in black and white, and I think again another reason for the black and white.
This is the reason why it was in black
Yeah.
and white was so they could shoot this scene.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
put the implied blood in.
Yeah. The transition from the water going down into the drain to the close up on her eye that pulls out.
That pulls out in a sort of like almost like in a tunnel, like kind of like in a 360 kind of way for a little bit.
There were some incredibly imaginative shots that they did.
Speaking of shots, go ahead,
No,
Brandon.
I'm sorry.
All I was going to say is during the stabbing scene, the only cutting that was happening is the cut edit between showing the stabbing and then showing her expression. That's how they got away with it. Then implied stabbing. Go ahead.
And also, that body that was being stabbed was not Janet Leigh. That was actually a Playboy model that was cool. That was cooler with being nude and having a knife around her.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Good on you, Playboy model.
I wish I remembered her name. I apologize.
Yeah. Well, when we were talking about interesting shots, the very first shot of the movie is an outside view of an apartment building, and then you actually go into with no cuts into the apartment.
There's one cut there, like as they're getting to the.
It's a hard to see.
It's like a faded cut almost.
Yeah.
It fades into the cut.
Yeah. Which that was, I want to say, a hallmark of Hitchcock's, but that's something that he tried to do a lot. One of his movies is called Rope.
Yeah, Rope.
And one of the reasons why it's called Rope is because it's quote unquote one long continuous shot. It actually isn't.
Yeah.
Because they only had enough film in the camera to run it for 10 minutes, so they would end a scene in somebody's like back, and then they would immediately pick up the scene from there.
Right. Also, real quick, while we're talking about transitional shots, if I'm not mistaken, when they're pulling away from her face and her eye, isn't there a transitional shot that happens? Like
that's what I was talking about from the drain to her eye. And back.
Right. The transitional
because
shot
her
there.
iris is like so wide. Like,
right.
It's again expertly shot, and something I want to bring up here. This was not Hitchcock's film crew. This was not his movie film crew.
Right.
This was his television show crew. I think one of the reasons also for that was because Alfred Hitchcock Presents was in black and white. I think them bringing them into this because his film crew, I mean, for the love of God, they did one of the greatest Technicolor films of all time in Vertigo in 58.
Yeah.
So, like, this is... You want to talk about stark as far as, like, going from one to another. You had, like, beautiful, vibrant, out there visuals in Vertigo, and with the color of that, to muted black and white, with a lot of the filming being done almost like a flat TV show in some spots. Now, in other spots, like I said, like what you mentioned with the apartment or the apartment zoom, with the transition between drain to eye, thought it was absolutely, like, it's fantastic.
Also,
they were top notch.
Another big deal about this film when it came out is that Janet Leigh was like posted top billing on the movie.
Yeah.
Like she was going to be the star of the film, and she's dead the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. This is something like this had never
They had
happened
never,
before.
no one had ever done that because she was a big star at that time.
Yeah.
So, Ethan, she's dead. What happened next?
She's dead. We then see Norman run from his house behind the motel into.
Oh yeah, you hear him yell out,
Yeah.
"Oh God, mother, what have you done?"
Right.
We see him burst through the number one room, and he rushes to the bathroom, and he sees Janet's body on the floor, dead.
And his face is like legitimate fear.
Yeah.
He is absolutely scared. He has no idea what to do. Yet the first thing that he does is he decides to grab the shower curtain, lays it out on the ground, and pulls Janet's body over it. And he gets ready to dispose of her body.
Oh, he cleans the hotel room as pristine as he possibly
And
can.
there's nothing cut. Like
Yeah.
that is one of the most deliberate scenes. Like it's like it gets in there. It's like, oh hell, and then it's just like slowly one by one. Like
Yeah, there's no dialogue during this whole thing.
No.
and again, without saying it outright,
Right.
you know he's done this before
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because it's too easily done. Like. I come upon a dead body. First thing I'm going to do is empty my bowels into my pants.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
holy shit!
Yeah, he
Like,
Right.
freaks out a little bit,
Yeah.
but then he gets
and
to
he's just
work.
just
Yeah.
straight to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems almost routine for him. Like he knows all the steps to do. He knows what to do with the body. He knows what to do with belongings and everything. He grabs all of Janice, Miss Crane's belongings. He throws them all into the suitcase. He finds the newspaper that she has hidden the $40,000 in. He doesn't even look in it.
He doesn't know there's money in
Yeah.
there.
He throws it in the trunk of her vehicle, puts Miss Crane's body in the back seat, and he begins to slowly drive the vehicle into the swamp.
Conveniently, there's a swamp behind the
Yeah,
house.
Again, deliberate.
Right.
Just so deliberate. And again, that's informing you. It's like, this is, I want to say regular. He's done this before.
Right.
Yeah, this is painted perfectly for in case this happens to him.
There is a moment where he's waiting for the car to
I
get
was just
sucked.
about to say.
Yeah, go ahead, Brady.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was
Okay.
just about to talk about that.
Yeah.
How like he pushes the car into there, and you see it fall down into the swamp, and then it starts sinking, and then there's just like the roof, and it stops
For a good 30 seconds.
for a good 30 seconds. And for some reason, like when I watched this before, like that didn't stick out to me, but I remember.
Right.
But like you're almost holding your breath with
Right.
him, because he's not sure if it's gonna, and then it starts to sink. Actually,
Finally starts bubbling, and then all the evidence goes.
So just one little thing to tack onto this scene. So this whole thing started because she stole $40,000. And you think up until this point, like this is going to be the crux of the movie, to the point where maybe she's the psycho, because during the driving scene that was mentioned earlier, her face goes through every emotion that can be in the span of a minute and a half.
Her brain starts making up all these like different scenarios. You hear an inner monologue of things that have not happened that she's trying to figure out what may or may not happen depending on what she does.
Again, maybe she's the psycho. No, it keeps pivoting you on what you think is going to happen and what actually happens.
Right.
I failed to mention this, but her boss actually sees her leaving town the day she does it.
And then
That was a really good shot.
Yeah, and his face looks kind of like
confused
and worried.
because he had sent her home because she had a headache, so that way she was going to go to the bank, deposit money, and go home. and
Right.
rest. Yet here he is seeing her in a vehicle, not sick, and ready to leave town. So he already knows that something is not right.
That's a shot that Tarantino also used.
I was
in,
about to say
Pulp
that.
Fiction.
Yeah, that's the shot where
Bruce Willis and
yeah,
Marcellus Wallace and Ving
Yeah.
Rhames, Marcellus Wallace.
he's got
Copied
donuts.
that, yeah.
Absolute genius.
Which I'm certain is something that we'll bring up when we get through the movie.
yes.
Um,
And so at this point, Miss Crane is
Missing.
missing.
Yep.
It goes about a week. No results have been shown up.
About a
No
few
one-
days.
I like
few
that
days
time
to a week.
passes.
Yeah.
Yes,
time passes.
legitimate
and
time
we
passes.
cut, but there's no like, we're used to movies nowadays just going 1 week later or whatever like
Yes.
that.
Well, it's the cinema sins trope of like whenever something is like it's like I'll use Prague because I'm actually not. Prague's in Austria, right? Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, yeah.
Czechoslovakia.
So yeah,
doesn't
like
exist
you would be
anymore.
like, for instance, my idiot ass, which apparently doesn't know geography, would go, oh, Prague, Czechoslovakia, as opposed to like Prague, Illinois.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it's kind of spelled out for you. No, this is And you honestly don't need to know this is happening in Arizona, California. You
Yeah.
don't. Like it's
Right.
it could be anywhere.
Well,
This
you get
couldn't
the-
happen in Montana.
You get
anyway.
the you get the time signature because the private detective starts
Well,
trying.
you pick it up in
Yeah.
dialogue is what
Right,
I'm saying. You
right,
don't just
right.
outright say.
Yeah.
We then see Lila, Miss Crane's sister, find Sam in California, in Los Angeles, California, asking him if Marion was with him,
Right.
and she just wants to know if her sister is all right. Sam swears up and down that she is not with him. He hasn't heard from her in a week.
And while they're talking,
The private
a
eye.
man's nostrils are
Yeah.
immediately
Oh, yeah.
thrust into your face.
Yeah,
That's-
that was a super close.
Yeah.
See, and once again, it's like, is this guy gonna have like something to do with this? Not from a like he's gonna solve the thing. It's like
Yeah.
because that's a very sinister
Yeah,
shot.
Right.
yes, yeah.
Because he walks in, doesn't say anything. The only thing you have really backing it is the jingle of a door opening,
Yeah.
and it's just like camera and face, and I've just got my hands like
It's-
pressed right when
It's an
it's right
uncomfortable.
on you.
It's an uncomfortable close up.
It is very
Like
uncomfortable.
you feel like he's in your personal space.
So Sam and Lila are having a conversation about this, and he just injects himself, saying, "Well, I have a few questions for you, Mr. Sam." He's trying to figure out where Marion is to find the money for the real estate investor.
because they don't want to get the police involved because she's a good woman.
Yes.
And this is not her normal behavior. So her boss is trying to cut her a break and not,
Yeah. If she just brings back the money,
everything will be okay.
He ultimately believes Sam, saying that with him saying Marion isn't with him. So he goes around the Los Angeles area, going to every single hotel, motel.
Yeah, finger up.
Oh, yes.
Every time he goes to a hotel, the opening theme for the movie plays.
Oh,
And
I
it-
didn't. For some reason, I didn't. catch
And,
that.
and it starts
I
getting
never noticed that.
getting a little grating on my nerves when that
yeah,
happens.
that's kind of an old timey thing.
Yeah.
They like to play one song over.
Yeah,
and
it's
over
not
again.
it's not really tension build up when he's just going to different hotels asking
Yeah.
people, like not for me as the viewer.
Well,
personally.
there's. It's weird because there's no real tension because
Yeah.
we know what
we
happened.
know that it's not any of these hotels.
Yeah.
So why are you playing the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun? It's
Yeah, I think that's an older movie thing because there's a lot of movies who will pick one part of a score or one song
I think
and
it
just
was,
play it over.
What was
again,
it? It
over
was
again.
Bernard Lerman. Was who was the because I mean he created the greatest
Bernard Herrmann, it was.
Bernard Herrmann. Thank you, Bernard Herrmann was the composer for this. There was a point where Hitchcock was like, I don't want any music or sounds in the shower scene other than her getting stabbed and her screaming. That's all he wanted in that. Bernard Herrmann then scored it anyway and said you're not going to use this, but here you go. Hitchcock wrote him a bonus check
Oh wow.
because without that yeek, yeek, yeek,
Yeah.
without that, I don't think the tension in that scene,
Yeah.
it honestly it becomes too disturbing to really keep your tension. Kind of more, it's almost more like I'm enthralled by that
Yeah.
scene because of the composition of the shots
Well, there's-
and the music.
and I think the
backing it.
music being there during that stabbing scene also initiates a precedent for other slashers to come
Yes.
later on down the road as well.
Not to mention the emotions that you feel during the scene happening. Like I can imagine moviegoers whenever this released, everyone was terrified when that scene happened.
Yeah.
You hear that she. You see Marion screaming. I would not be surprised if a couple people fainted.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
when
yeah,
that
easily.
happened.
But
I think
also,
that was one of the big.
also more I think again it works to make it exciting as opposed to being disturbing.
Yeah, that's why I
It's
was.
still a disturbing scene because
Yes.
someone's getting murdered.
Right.
There are a
but
lot
if
of-
you don't have that, then it's too real.
Yeah.
Even though she's not getting stabbed and it's Hershey's chocolate syrup.
I'm thinking about there's a lot of newer horror movies who they will cut out when something bad like that is happening. They will cut out all of the sounds, so all that you're hearing is the ambient sounds of that area, and it makes it way more disturbing,
Way
than
more
that was.
unsettling.
Yes.
And I obviously what Hitchcock was going for there wasn't unsettling. It was that almost a release of tension because it was built up and then it hits you and then you're like, oh shit.
I think
That might be a bad way of phrasing it, but
No, I think it allows you to remind yourself, it's only a movie, only a movie, only a movie. You're watching something that was crafted Janet Leigh is alive.
Yeah.
She's not been stabbed to death. Everything is fine.
Actors were not harmed during
Yeah,
the
no
making
one
of
was
this
actually
film.
getting harmed in
Yeah,
this.
not in this particular movie.
So-
Yeah.
Yes.
Finally, our private investigator.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's gone to every single motel in Los Angeles, gets no luck. Then he stumbles upon the Bates Motel.
Mm-hmm.
He finds Norman Bates changing the sheets and approaches him and asks him if Marion has been.
He shows him a picture of her, and he immediately goes, "No, I haven't seen her." He's like, "You haven't even looked at the picture, man."
Are you sure you haven't seen her? And then presses on, and you see like, "Oh yes, I did see her. She came in last week, but she immediately left."
Well, he
afterwards."
doesn't say
Yes.
that immediately. There's all this talk about looking at the ledger, and
Yeah.
there's all this like really awkward conversation that happens between the two, where Norman keeps saying that, "No, I haven't had anybody show up," and then slips up and says someone showed up like a week ago, and he's like, "Well, let
Yeah.
me see the ledger." And so there's a lot of the PI kind of knows something's going on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, his PI senses were definitely tingling.
Yeah. During the conversation, Norman mentions that it's only him and his mother at the motel, and so the PI is wanting to ask the mother if she's seen anything regarding Marion, and then we see Norman start to get like defensive over his
Worried.
worried.
Honestly, I think Ethan hit the right number.
Yeah.
This is the first time that you've kind of seen Norman fight
Scared.
back.
Right.
Bite,
Yeah.
like
Right.
he realizes he's got to do something.
Mm-hmm. And then he immediately asks the PI to leave, and then
Which he does.
yeah, he does respectively. We then cut to a scene where he's in a phone booth talking to Miss Lila, saying that she was at the base, that Marion was at the Base Motel, but he just has this strange feeling. He has a compulsion to go back and ask the mother some questions, and he reassures her that he's gonna call back after he's had a conversation with the mother.
Right. Now, while that's going on, I'm not trying to step on your toes, Ethan. While that's going on, Norman is having a conversation with his mother in the house.
And going back to this cinematography, which I actually wanted to shout out Mr. John L. Russell for the cinematography of the movie. We see this really interesting camera shot where we see Norman go upstairs of this two-story house. And then we kind of see the camera like have a tunnel effect where we see it like rotate in a spiral as it goes up.
The camera,
stairs.
the camera goes up, and then while the conversation's happening in the bedroom between Norman and his mother that you do not see.
Out of view. We do not see this
we do not
happening.
see it. Yeah, that's out of view. The camera slowly tucks up right above where the door is, and as soon as he walks out, it pans back to where you see a shot of the stairs that you get to see.
And then we see Norman walk out of a room carrying an elderly body, which
Carrying his mother.
Wait,
Oh,
wait. We're
Yeah.
going out of time here
Are we?
because that
We
was
skipped a
that
part.
was after he died.
That
Oh, was it?
Yes, it was.
yeah.
Oh,
Yes, it
okay.
was.
Okay. All right. Back
oh,
it
it
up.
was okay.
Yeah. So-
our apologies. Our apologies.
No, it's okay. No, well, let me, now that it's on the table, I want to stress that because I have just recently watched Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I think of Sam Raimi when I think of that shot.
Yeah, it's
because
very
of
Sam
how
Raimi.
it's moving and then the angle is also like tilting along with it. There's a lot of dynamic movement with the camera there. To bring it back to where we are in the film, when the private investigator comes in and he's going up the stairs, he always stays in focus, but basically the foot of the stairs where you would see it feels like it's getting further and further out.
Right,
yeah.
And so it's creating, like, again, it's setting up in your brain that he is way further up than he ought to be, which
Yeah.
means he should be in danger. And also, spoilers, but this whole thing is spoilers. When the mother comes out and attacks him and when he starts falling, it's been built up in your brain that this set of stairs is way too fucking big. So when
Right.
he falls like this, he is clearly going to die.
Right.
Yeah, so it's again that use of camera work in here. Again, we mentioned the shower scene, but here too. And I think it's really unsung with that part because
I agree.
Watching it with y'all, I finally kind of processed.
Oh
it in my
yeah,
brain
I
of
totally
it.
have forgotten about all the camera work done in the house
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, but yeah, that again, I don't think it was a dolly zoom, But I think Spielberg would perfect it with the dolly zoom, especially in Jaws when during the beach attack scene where Roy Scheider always stays in focus, but everything around him just feels like it's
However,
pulling
they
out.
did it because they didn't do it with the dolly, and Steadicam hadn't been invented yet. So
no, that's the first dolly that he basically that's the dolly, and it's like as it's moving back, it keeps zooming in on him. So like everything not in focus is getting further out, but you're staying. On Roy Scheider. But this one, I have to think it was just expert camera work.
it could have been. Could have been.
This is his TV crew. His TV crew is producing shots that movie crews in that era wish they could.
Right.
I kind of have like a thought which undermines my feelings with the movie. I very much underappreciate the amount of work that was put into the cinematography, because I grew up with movies that already implemented all these camera techniques.
The process.
Yes.
Yeah.
But actually looking back and seeing all of this is being done in the 60s where no techniques have been like finalized.
People were inventing
techniques as each movie came out. So to really see everything that I grew up with be developed in this movie, I kind of like overshadowed it in a way.
Well, yeah, like it's like it's one of those of like going back, seeing the things that like that everything was based on, because all of these like really big name directors, they stole from Hitchcock basically, and I'm not saying that as a derogatory thing. Everybody when it comes to art steals somewhere or another from somebody.
I would, to be more diplomatic, borrowed and refined.
Yes. I'm not gonna be. They stole, but it's okay. I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all.
You catty bitch.
It's okay, Brady.
I don't consider that a bad. I don't.
That's a reference from last week. I hope you've been keeping up.
So,
lip curl was the response.
I don't see that as a bad thing because everybody takes from what they grew up on,
right?
In any kind of art, really. Who was it? Picasso, great artist, steal. But like Steven Spielberg, Brian De Palma, Quentin Tarantino, Sam Raimi, they all took stuff from Hitchcock. So you're seeing like the genesis of all of these things. He is one of like the big people that everybody, learned lessons from his movies and took specific
and film
things
schools taught different techniques.
Well, the idea of the film school.
Yeah.
Hitchcock once said of Spielberg is the first of a generation that did not start in the theater, like did not start in play and stage production. He was born purely into the art form, which gave him a look at it that was different than people like Hitchcock, like Sidney Lumet, like a whole bunch of other people who, again, started in stages, either in England or in Broadway, and then moved on into doing movie and movie work. So I think one of the reasons why I say kind of again borrowed and refined is they saw this, and this was the only thing they knew, and because it was the only thing they knew, they weren't hampered by, well, we have to make sure that our facing is towards the crowd so that everybody can hear it. Like your facing can be anywhere. You have microphones, you have sound, you have different ways of producing these visuals. You don't just have a human eye. You have a camera eye that can be like zoomed in and zoomed out and all these things that Spielberg, again, was that first generation with him and Godfather. Francis Ford Coppola, even Lucas. Lucas, you look at American Graffiti.
So after we see Norman carry his mother down the stairs, after the PI has already been attacked and killed by the mother, falling down the stairs, we see a transition to Lila and Sam and in some house living room, I assume.
I thought it was the carpenter. I thought it was the carpenter shop.
I couldn't be too
They
sure.
They were in the carpenter shop, and they were talking about going to talk to the sheriff or something.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Lila wanted to go to the hotel initially.
Right.
Then Sam kind of like reluctantly convinced her to not do it at this time of at this hour, and then
Sam shows up there before, but he can't. But like Norman's not there. Nobody's in the hotel. Nobody's coming to the door of the house. He can see an old woman sitting at a window.
Yes,
and that's when Norman goes and brings the mother downstairs because he
to
knows
the
that
onion cellar.
he knows that
Okay,
they're going to be
okay.
coming back, and she's not having any of this shit. But he picks her up and carries her anyway.
Again, audience, I apologize for my
No.
misplaced
It's okay.
No, like
significance.
what? Again, part of this movie is how it misdirects you and how it kind of makes you like not realize time and space almost. Again, because we're on 4 possible psychos. None of them are the psycho.
Yes.
We've got one, but he's covering for his mother, who might be the real psycho. We don't know. So yeah.
But Norman also describes the mother to be too weak to get up from the chair and meet him at the door. And watching this, that line was always in the back of my mind, going from the second act to the end of the movie.
Right. It's after they talk to Norman that they go talk to the
This is a good place to
sheriff.
bring up the fact that Ethan has not only never watched this movie, but did not know any of the plot.
I knew nothing about the movie. The only thing I knew was the iconic shower
I was
scene.
so envious of you.
Yes.
Like because this plot was spoiled for us long before we were born.
I never got to watch Psycho without knowing exactly what all the twists and turns of the movie
I did.
are. You bastard. I'm jealous of you both. Because movies like this, there's something special about watching them and
Yes,
Ethan's
yes,
brother,
and I
hand me
can
that
see.
Nerf gun so I can shoot one of the 2 of them.
I got lucky though, because
Thank you, Ethan's brother. I will shoot someone now. You won't know.
I got
will
lucky
not
though.
know.
So because
I've been shot.
It was an easier shot to make. He's
Yes.
right there.
I don't trust you with the Nerf gun.
Yeah.
No
Why
one
not?
should ever.
No one
Why
should.
not?
Everyone should trust me with a Nerf
No.
gun.
we have friends who have
Never.
almost lost eyes.
Yes, and they should have
twice.
known that they were
Yes.
going to lose their eyes.
Right. This is why my face is being
Christopher
covered.
Gomez, how them eyes look? How them eyes look?
Came in Spanier when he was plucked 5 times with the Nerf balls from your automatic.
Put hair on his
To
chest.
be fair, that is a 200 ball drum. It shoots 8 shots a second. Someone's getting hit in the eyes. I can't keep track of who's getting hit in the eyes.
Oh man.
Hey, speaking of, it's
Jay,
right
you're
over there.
proof that we're probably shouldn't have money. Like this is a bad thing to give us money.
What? I had a good time.
You had a good time.
I had a
yes.
great time shooting Gomez in the eyes.
Back
How
to,
them eyes, Gomez?
back to Psycho.
Back to Psycho.
Yes.
We
So anyway.
we then see Sam and Lila go to the sheriff's house in the dead of night, and they urge the sheriff to go over there and investigate. But as a courtesy for the time of night, he decides to call. And as he's calling, Sam is talking to the sheriff's wife and describing about the house, the motel, and
That conversation is also awkward.
Yes.
very.
A lot of awkward
And
conversations.
Every
in this movie.
conversation in this movie.
Well,
is awkward, I think.
because they've known Norman his whole life.
Yeah.
And he also Sam mentions Norman's mother, and
Seeing Norman's mother.
seeing Norman's mother in the house, and we kind of see like a very confused face on the sheriff.
And I wish
the
that's
wife.
where he would have left it. I really do. But
See, to me, the reality of that,
Mhm.
they would say they would
too.
they would not say,
Right.
"Oh yeah, she's dead." They wouldn't. Oh yeah, let's not tell her that she's dead.
right.
Yes.
Like that. It's like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. She's been dead for a while,
Yeah.
because that
Right.
would make no sense,
Well, no, just
especially to a cop.
right. Well, I mean for the audience, just not that the conversation didn't continue for them, maybe, but
Again, though, like for that character, like if you're gonna bring that up, if you're gonna bring the fact that that they've talked with her or they know
Right.
that she is around,
right.
they know that's not true.
Yeah.
And so for them to just not say anything, and again, going back to the sheriff, a police officer, this is evidence,
Right.
And they're just not going to say anything. I think there's a lot of not like the wish that you have for
The
them
reveal,
not saying
yeah,
for them
for the
revealing
reveal,
it
yeah.
is would then be a different gripe of
Right.
Of the fact that why didn't he say that in there? Like it makes no sense.
No, I understand where you're coming from. Just for the sake of the reveal, because that pretty much like gives you the indication that It's not, the mother is not.
When I heard that line, I kind of had like a very confused face at first because but wait a minute, we see the mother doing all these heinous acts to Miss Marion to
Clearly
the PI.
she faked her death. Obviously, that's the only thing it could be.
That's actually almost implied.
I can see people thinking that maybe she faked her death. Maybe this is somebody else.
This is someone else. This is not Norman's mother.
Maybe Norman there's another woman there, having, doing this.
Maybe a sister. Who knows?
Maybe there's, I can imagine some people in the audience, this just leads to confusion.
But all we know is that Norman's mother is supposedly dead.
Yes.
And that's when they decide to go back to the house.
Yes. They go back to
and
the
according
house.
according to the cop, it was a murder suicide. The mother killed a boyfriend and then killed herself.
Yes. Leaving Norman parentless.
Yes.
And to have the motel to himself.
It was 10 years before is what
10
they
years.
said?
10 years. Yeah.
10 years.
Sam and Lila meet back with the sheriff and the wife the next day, and begrudgingly against Sam, Lila urges him that they need to go to the motel immediately. They need to figure out what's happening with the PI, with Marion. They need to get to the bottom of this. So they head over to the Bates Motel and act as a couple, and they decide to rent a room. Norman gives them the room key. They go to the room, and they wait for Norman to either get in a position to where Sam can distract him for a little bit, as Lila sneaks past Norman and heads straight up to the house.
Because Norman gives him room number 10 or some shit.
Yes.
As far away from the office as possible.
Far away from room number 1 as they can possibly get.
Yes. And before this happens, we see Sam and Lila sneak into room number 1.
Yeah, she checks to see if the door is unlocked, and it is.
Yeah. And then that's where they find the scrap of paper that that fell out of the toilet while she was trying to flush it.
Yes. And they then know that she's been in this room. Marion has been in this room because who else would write $40,000 on a scrap note? So then that's when Sam distracts Norman with conversation in the office, with no window, by the way. As Lila sneaks past the office and heads up to the house.
Behind the hotel, I think she actually sees the swamp too, doesn't she?
No.
Or am I
She
mistaken?
cuts behind the hotel, but I don't think they show.
Okay.
No.
They show
It might have just been kind of just a sidewise kind of
Gotcha.
oh, look, it's there.
because there was a space, you don't really see it, but until
Right.
that point. But there's a space between buildings that she goes around.
Yeah.
Right.
We then see Lila enter the house and immediately head up the stairs. And then she cuts a hard left into what appears to be a cracked door leading into a very feminine room.
Yeah. This is the same room that we saw Norman take his mother out of.
She starts snooping, looking behind the curtains, opening wardrobes.
What did you think about the indention in the bed?
That is one of the creepiest
That-
things.
That
Yes.
is a very creepy thing.
That is so creepy.
So we see Lila turns to the bed. There is a human imprint on the bed mattress.
A deep,
somebody
deep
laying
imprint.
laying on their side.
Someone has been laying here for a long time. We then see she doesn't find anything. She finds no trace of a person in there except for the imprint, because that's all there is.
Yeah.
And she starts heading back downstairs. We then cut to
Hold on.
Oh.
She goes into Norman's old room, and that part is creepy as fuck as well.
with all of its old toys.
With all his, especially
I thought
the bunny, the bunny with the one ear, not a real bunny, even though he's a taxidermist, the stuffed animal with the one ear missing.
For some reason, I'm thinking that in the onion cellar. For some reason,
No, it's a
that
different
wasn't
room.
the onion cellar.
Okay.
No,
I'm mistaken then.
yeah.
But then after looking into Norman's very psychotic bedroom, we then transition to Sam and Norman back in the office. Their conversation is starting to get a little heated.
It escalates pretty quickly,
very
actually.
quickly. And then Sam mentions Marion stopping by. That's when Norman gets the realization, where's your wife?
Yeah.
And he immediately triggers his fight or flight response. He tries to get away from Sam. Sam holds him back. But
Yeah, there's a little bit of tussling going on there for a second.
But Norman's able to grab a vase and smash it against Sam's head and knocks him out.
The classic
temporarily.
50s and 60s tranquilizer.
Yes.
Just
Right,
straight
this-
up.
One
vase.
One vase to the head. Out.
Yeah, go ahead.
We then see Norman run up the hill towards the house. Lila sees Norman running
As she's just made her way back down the stairs.
Yeah.
We see him run up to her.
Well,
Yeah.
he's
Run
about to
towards
open
the
the
house,
door.
yeah.
Yeah.
She decides to run towards the back of the house when she sees a staircase leaning down to the onion cellar. She hides in there. Norman slams open the door, looks around for a little bit, and heads upstairs.
Is this the first popular instance in horror movies of someone doing the absolute wrong thing? Because how many entrances out of a basement are there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's usually a panic moment, and it's almost human nature just to go to the next thing that you see to try and hide into. Because if you think about it logically, if there was a roof, that's not a good place to go.
Right.
She goes from "I need to get out of here" to immediately "I
Hiding.
need to hide."
Yeah.
This person.
So
yeah, and it's hard for me. I'm not super familiar with like those older horror movies. So I don't even know if that's the first. It probably helped.
it definitely set a trope.
It probably helped popularize that
Yes,
trope,
very
though. Yeah.
much. We then see her go downstairs because we don't want Norman seeing her leave through the front door as he just went upstairs. We then see what is assumed Norman's mother.
Now, this is an iconic shot right
Yes.
here.
Sitting in a wheelchair, facing a corner, in a very in like an iconic light bulb on a string.
Yeah, she flicks the light bulb.
The lighting in that room is so
Yeah,
important.
the atmosphere, the setup for the reveal that's about to happen is the tension of that is very well done.
Yes.
We see Lila approach Norman's mother. She's not responding to anything.
Mrs. Bates. Mrs. Bates.
She turns Mrs. Bates' body to face the camera, and we see a withered, elderly female skeleton in a wig and a dress.
And almost the same moment, we see Norman bust through the door.
There's one, and we mentioned it, right before he busts through that door, she flings her arm back and catches catches the light.
Oh, yeah.
And because of that, when he's coming through, that light's jostling a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah.
So even then, at that moment, you're not 100% sure if what is coming through that door.
Right,
Yeah.
because the expression on his face is fucking terrifying.
Oh, God, yeah.
We
Yeah.
see a very murderous Norman Bates in a dress and a wig.
Just to
Holding a
look just like his
humongous butcher
mother.
knife.
Yes. As he is about to rush Lila, we see Sam tackle him from the back as he shoves the knife away from his hand.
And he writhes in pain as he's being held.
As he's tearing apart the dress from the buttons, revealing his regular everyday clothes.
And that's not where the movie ends, though.
Oh, but it should have.
It should have definitely probably ended there.
I would argue it shouldn't have ended right there, but the next part shouldn't have happened.
Yes.
They should have definitely just had.
They should have cut to the very end.
They should have just had cop show up.
Here's why I say it should have ended there. Or if you're going to have this next scene, then you need to have that comeback scene that is the scene after. Okay, I call it the explanation scene.
Yes.
We see a bunch of policemen, doctors,
And one psychiatrist.
and a
Sam and Lila also.
Yeah.
and Sam and Lila. We then see the psychiatrist enter the room and gives an explanation on
Before he does that, he goes, "Hey, just letting you know, yes, your sister is dead, but let me tell you why."
Yes.
Yeah.
And we then see that the psychiatrist explains that Norman is suffering from, I want to say, almost like multiple personality,
Some sort of psychosis.
dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah.
where
is
he's,
what it would be called now.
Yeah.
where he's somehow manifesting his mother's.
Hey, that psychology degree came in.
Finally,
there you go.
I got my English degree.
We're using
Got
all of our
psychology
degrees.
Yeah,
There we go.
the whole time that's being explained, the lover, ex-lover, I guess, and the sister are just sitting there, mesmerized by what's being told to them, not having any sort of emotion whatsoever to the death of their
The death of their sister/lover, the death
Of the PI.
the PI who they were starting to warm up to, even though we first met him right down his nostrils,
and
two other people,
two unknown solved cases,
Right.
This has never been mentioned,
along with the mother and the boyfriend.
Most people, when they think back to Psycho, they don't remember this particular scene
because
block it out.
it is very boring and by the books. This is what
it's
everything
drier.
that happened.
It's drier than sand on wheat bread.
Yeah,
like
that
it's
is
just
true.
Jesus
It's
Christ.
mansplaining what's going on.
Yeah.
We don't need it. It's unnecessary.
It's documentary.
Yeah.
It's a documentary for like 5 minutes, which completely is jarring from the whole of this film.
I want to say I've heard like as to why he did this. Did anybody like actually look that up and get any confirmation?
What I've always, and I don't know what the source was, but what I've always understood it was there was a genuine fear by the studio that people wouldn't understand what the fuck they just saw. Again, let's go back to the 1960s.
1960.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go back. So
This
late
is fif-
late 50s.
This is 50s mentality.
Yeah.
Early 60s mentality. The idea of like Charles Manson and his whole crew just butchering a whole bunch of people, like psychosis on this level
Yeah.
is not approachable. It's not understandable. So you needed something to explain what the fuck just happened.
Yeah, like that Ed Gein shit. They kept that shit down, locked. Like nobody knew about that right away when it happened
because it's so shocking to the conscience.
Ed Gein is
loosely based off of the characters, loosely based off of Ed Gein.
The book that this movie was then screenplayed for was loosely based off of Ed Gein. Same thing with Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also Silence of the Lambs based off of Ed Gein.
So many.
But
movies were based
that is so that I have to imagine that was so shocking. Hell, like because we have this option, Ethan, did that scene help explain to you what happened, or do you think you could have pieced it out without that?
So whenever the sheriff had revealed that Norman's mother was dead, I had two theories in my head. It's either another woman committing these crimes playing Norman's mother, or it's Norman himself in womanly clothes. Those were the two things in my mind as the movie was progressing. And as it got closer, and as the reveal happened with the dead mother, in that instance, I knew it was going to be Norman. I knew it was Norman, and Norman's face told it.
Yeah.
I mean, all they really had to explain is that a young Norman was slightly off and was extremely jealous of her mother's boyfriend and wasn't getting any attention anymore, and that's what snapped him.
Yeah, God forbid. Like Alfred Hitchcock, he's a master filmmaker, and we are just going to be staying here picking off his, the problems of this. But I really do think that you could have conveyed most of this information not in a way that was just
12 angry men.
One guy standing there. Well,
right.
Yeah. It was just one guy standing there literally explaining, like there had to have been some way, I can't think of it because I'm not a filmmaker and I can't write a script.
No, I think you have Lila just do like a voiceover over a bunch of like not necessarily scenes, but like just like shots of Norman, shots of the house, and just kind of like you could have the exact same explanation, but with a grieving, still in shock. Lila talking about how her sister's dead and how he had killed other women.
And they could have even done a thing where she was doing a voiceover as the movie's ending and saying the newspaper said it was because of some kind of psychosis.
Yeah. I'll go one further, and maybe it's because I have more faith in audiences than most people do, but I think that we could have understood it. It wouldn't have been that hard to understand if that particular scene wasn't even there.
Yes.
Right, where it just ends where they catch him.
I think that we could have gotten the gist. We may have not have gotten all of that perfect explanation, but we could have. But I think audiences even back then could have gotten.
What irritates me about that is that the last scene is because up until that point, and in other Hitchcock works, he assumes the audience is not stupid.
Yeah.
Like up until that last scene, you're figuring shit out. somewhat. And I mean, it's even laid out when the sheriff and the sheriff's wife are like, Norman's mother has been dead for 10 years. You don't need it mansplained to you.
Yeah, at most, a couple of lines of like, oh, there's two people in there now. It's his mother. There's his mind broke. There's his mother, and then there's him.
Mm-hmm. I think there's at least about a good 10 seconds there where they go over transvestitism, and like, oh, so he was a transvestite. No, a transvestite is this. Yeah. This was something wholly different.
And that is something that, if I'm not mistaken from what I've read, is in the original book. The guy who wrote that book wanted it to be very clear that this is not a guy who is getting off by dressing as a woman. This is a guy who has two personalities, and one of them is a woman. Because there are, a lot of possibly valid criticisms. I don't think we're really the ones to stand here and say that of this is the guy this is the trope of the guy in the dress who is crazy. And there's a lot of connotations with that, but I think, at least from what I've read, the original guy wanted it to be very clear that he's not trying to do this trope. He's trying to do something.
Well, and I never, like, when I was super young when I saw this, I never made that sort of like assumption anyway, because it's not just that he's dressing up like a woman. He's dressing up like his elderly mother.
Yeah.
Shout out to Robert Bloch for writing Psycho.
And it's all of, and we might, other people might take it differently, and that's understandable because we don't have those particular experiences. So again, like I said, we're really not the people to necessarily say whether this is good or bad. We can just say how we see it, and I don't see it as that trope, but I know from what I have read and seen of other people talking on the internet and whatever, when they talk about this movie, that is something that is brought up.
Yeah, the term, I don't think it's appropriate, but future proofing, just like anticipating a question that might need an answer. I still think it's just a giant ham hock just smacking you right in the face. It's
It's
for all
ham-fisted.
the subtlety in this and all of Hitchcock's other movies. This is not that.
Right.
There is one thing I kind of want to finally touch up on regarding this scene. This scene, even though a lot of people, a lot of viewers dislike this scene, especially with how it's approached, I think the scene very much leads into the very final cuts we see of Norman.
Yeah, I think if you're going to have this scene, I think, again, I do think that was powers beyond Hitchcock's control on this. Like, he had to throw the scene in. It's like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to have another 2 minutes there at the very end, and I'm going to bring it all back. And he almost brings it all the way back.
To me, he brings it back, because this is my favorite scene.
And I think we were talking about, fixing the last scene in the film, and I think going back to the suggestions of, her doing a narrative, they could have had the same exact narrative, except not showing any of that in the room, and just slowly panning towards Norman, like, for that whole entire narrative of explaining why he did what he did.
Yeah, and then cutting to the actual internal monologue.
Right. Just the whole thing, just like one shot of Norman, that whole entire dialogue.
When that scene happened, and when it came to Norman's mother giving the final line, they won't convict me. I would never hurt a single fly. And then we see Norman stare at the camera, giving a very menacing and fearing a smile.
Well, yeah, there's even a fly that lands on his hand.
Yeah,
and he's like,
"Oh, I'm not even going to swat that fly." This is done this is Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates. He gives like a great performance, and he doesn't say a word. All he does is do a couple of looks, and you get everything. Did you notice in the very last shot when he stares at the camera? Did you notice what Hitchcock does?
No.
He puts a skull.
Not just a skull.
The mother's skull,
yeah,
over Norman's face.
It's a double transition.
Yeah, it's like a fade.
Yeah, because when they're fading into them pulling the car out of the mire, right as they're doing that, they superimpose his mother's skull on his face.
Superimpose. That was the
word. Whenever that line was given and Norman gave that smile, I legit got chills down my spine.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to.
Yeah, and then we see the movie fade to black.
The the car being pulled out of the swamp, and then that's
remember
it.
this part? Remember this plot point?
Oh yeah,
Just randomly car getting pulled out of the swamp.
Remember when you thought this was going to be about a lady stealing $40,000 and like seeing if she can get away? No, it turned into something completely different.
We see Marion's car getting pulled out of the swamp.
Before this, movies were very, very straightforward.
And even after this.
Yeah, and even after this, to be honest.
To this day.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So that's Psycho. Yeah.
I'm extremely impressed with all of us for not going on more tangents about other Hitchcockian works.
We did an hour 50 last time.
That's true.
Yeah.
We're well aware. We're still tired from that.
That's true. That's very true.
With this being my first Hitchcock movie, I am very impressed by it.
Wait till you see Vertigo in Rear Window.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like everything
North by Northwest.
Rope. Everything that's been done with this
I would
movie.
even say The Birds. Some people don't like The Birds, but I like The Birds.
I don't hate it. It's just not my favorite Hitchcock movie.
Birds.
Well,
Birds are the Bob Shinedown of Hitchcock movies.
Hey, Billy
does that
Shinedown.
even mean?
Billy Shinedown, thank you.
What is that?
What does it mean?
Take it as you can.
How do I unpack that?
They called me shit boy.
Shit boy. They called me a shit boy. No.
So I'm sorry we interrupt you, Ethan. You've never watched this before, so what are your
what are your
continue
takeaways?
with your takeaways?
With this being my first Hitchcock film, I was very engaged with no matter how long driven it was to get to like the major plot points, I was very much invested in everything.
You're used to that like super hyperkinetic pacing in your action films.
Yeah.
And this is not that.
I'm used to everything being fast paced, on topic, and no detours or anything.
Every 10 pages.
Even horror films now.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, just you don't have this type of build up like regularly.
No.
I think like Midsummer. Midsummer
The
has some
Witch.
really good build. The Witch has some great build up to it. But
the amount of tones that we take. Oh, we see her take the money. What'd she do with it? Nothing. We see the cop follow her to California. What happens with the cop? Nothing.
Yeah. Like the cop's definitely a red herring.
Yeah, this is tons of red herrings.
Like Alfred Hitchcock like throws me a map and says, "Hey, find your direction." I'm like, "But what direction? Good luck."
Yeah. Yeah, he'd do something like that. He was an asshole.
Yeah. But I enjoyed this movie.
I'm glad
That's
you
good.
liked it, man.
I'm glad you liked it. Yeah.
It's not my favorite.
I don't care whether you liked it or not. You finally experienced a movie.
I feel like this conversation would go very differently if I disliked this movie.
No.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be honest. This is not my favorite. I like Psycho more for what it's done
historically
and the moments. There are a lot of
good
parts in
good
this
moments,
movie that kind of plod to me. But I know that is part of the point.
Mm-hmm.
I think I said this after we watched the movie. You don't have somebody like you have in Rear Window where it is kind of plotting, but you still have Jimmy Stewart there who has this charisma.
Right.
The only person who really is shown to have charisma in this, in a weird way, is Norman Bates.
Right.
Not just in a weird way. Like, he is.
Yeah.
He is transfixing.
Everyone
Every time
else is
he's on the
deadpan.
screen, it's like, oh.
Right.
But like when he's not on the screen and they're doing all this other stuff, Jantley is good, but Hitchcock has a weird thing with how he does with women. So that's a whole other.
All the roles, all the character roles in this, everyone seemed like regular people.
Yeah.
For the most part. With the exception of maybe the over the top like creepy guy earlier.
Let's say, like, after,
some of them felt a little too wooden. Like
there was some stuff.
Sam Loomis is a little too wooden.
That's
for
the
me.
thing. Yeah. Basically, after Marion Crane dies, everybody else who's not Norman Bates is, to me, is kind of boring on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Not that the PI isn't.
The PI isn't, but he's only in the movie for about 5 minutes
Right.
total.
I don't know. The second house guy, he seemed pretty interesting.
Sure. But again, like, this is not my favorite.
That's your response as the second house guy?
Yeah.
What is that, Tommy Shinedown?
That's Edward Nickelback.
Edward Nickelback. Eddie Nickelback and Bob Shinedown in a duet from hell.
Dylan Creed.
And please kill us all. So yeah.
That's how you get Metallica's first album.
This is
you
not
put
like I said-
Bob Shinedown and Eddie Nickelback
No,
in the
no,
same room.
that's Metallica's 8th album, sir.
no,
and that's
no.
Saint Anger.
Oh, okay.
No.
I don't like that one.
I'm referencing Killing 'Em All because that's what you want to do.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
See?
yeah. That
Oh,
was
wow.
that was when they were good, and Dave
Thank-
Mustaine wrote half of the album and got kicked out for being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, thanks for shitting in me, Jody. That was
You're
great. I
welcome.
appreciate that.
So, Psycho. Yeah, it's not my favorite movie of Hitchcock's. I prefer like North by Northwest, or in that one you have Cary
Yeah.
Grant who's pushing that movie. This one's good, and I like it more for its legacy, and I appreciate it more than I actually like it.
I have to pretty much agree with Brady 100% on that. And mine would be like Rear Window, Vertigo.
Rear
Those
Window, I love.
but yeah,
Vertigo, I have, but I still haven't watched. And I need to watch it because
Yeah.
I love Jimmy Stewart.
they're
so
good. They're both good. Yeah, I still haven't seen North by Northwest.
North
yeah,
by Northwest
right?
is good.
Yeah.
I think this is my favorite Hitchcock.
What, Psycho?
Yeah, that's fine. And I'm not even in.
No, I'm not trying to dismiss anybody just said or trying to be contrarian. I just, again, like for me, I love good dialogue scenes. It's one of the reasons why Tarantino resonates with me throughout most of his filmography. Anytime you can have a very good scene with just two characters
Oh, yeah.
playing
yeah.
off one another, and that scene in the parlor between
that's-
Anthony Perkins
That's
and,
definitely
and-
up there
and,
in the
and-
scenes.
That's why I like
Jet
Ex
Li.
Machina so much. The dialogue drives that movie.
That's another good
Yeah.
one. Yeah. So yeah, no, this is my favorite. Not, and again, everything you said about Vertigo, North by Northwest, all those other films, he was an auteur's auteur,
Yeah.
and this to me is his take on exploitation. films.
Oh, yeah,
This
definitely.
is this is
Yeah.
just my feeling on that. It's
Oh,
just
yeah. Like this was.
Definitely in that
There were
vein.
people who came out against this movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Of-
Definitely.
You
Well,
know,
I mean, the first time you
they-
see Janet Leigh, it's like
Yeah,
fucking
she's in a bra.
bullet cone bra. Like
Yeah.
she's in a bra.
It definitely had some sleaze in it,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
risque to show a guy in a white T-shirt putting his button up on.
Well, yeah. Nowadays, this is like, oh man, there is not. This is the tamest thing ever.
Right.
But back then,
It was
this
very-
This was.
Yeah.
Like you said, this was sleazy.
It was very sleazy. The
This was
opening
seen as
scene with
sleazy.
them like getting out of bed,
Yeah.
heavily implying that they just had sex.
Yeah.
They're still in their underwear.
And again, this is late 50s, early 60s.
1960,
mentality.
yeah.
Free love weren't there yet.
Yeah, beatniks were just a thing. Like
Yeah.
they had just started coming around with the beatnik
Yeah.
culture.
It was around this time, right, when the code started being loose. Like they weren't quite as.
Couple more years.
It was a couple more years.
Couple more
Okay.
years.
That's
Okay.
because Hollywood was boring.
Yeah.
Hollywood was boring. At
But
the like,
underground filmmaking didn't really start for a couple more years.
Okay. All right.
I don't count Ed Wood in that because he was still part of the system
actually,
early
I'll say
on.
this. I think this is a trough in the Roger Corman era. Like, I think you have a little bit in the mid to late 50s with him, and then he just kind of I won't say passes down, but
Right.
it kind of hits an ebb, and then you have things like The Trip, and which really got into the counterculture.
Again, that's a
And
couple years
that's
down.
where
yeah.
that's where he kind of rises up.
I think
again. So-
what happens in I don't want to get into a filmography thing here, but I think that the influence of European and Swedish cinema in 62, 63
Yeah.
start to make exploitation actually a little bit
we're
more.
bringing Ingmar Bergman into this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I could see
And like
that.
French New Wave stuff like that.
Yeah, that's they're okay with titties. You know, why shouldn't we be okay with titties?
Because the nipple is the gateway to hell.
And then people
and soon after this, it's gonna be well, no, that was more the 70s.
also
I'm sorry, but yeah.
filmmakers realized that they didn't have to release a movie in every theater that was available. They had 42nd Street,
Yeah.
so they didn't worry about shooting something for multiple cinemas.
Yeah,
So-
just make your money in the grindhouse.
Yeah.
And you're good to go.
So
Well, and that's a whole 70s era.
Late 60s,
That's three discussions that might happen on a podcast called Fearology.
Something like that.
Oh wow.
Oh, Fearology.
This segue brought to you by
is,
Segway.
Yeah.
Is a podcast that at some point I might record without these guys because I don't know if that show's ever going to happen. But I want it to happen. I want it to
I
happen.
have notes for this for the show that's supposed to be happening.
Damn, I'm ready for it. You want to record it right now? Let's go.
My throat is shot, said someone last week, and so
Yeah.
I'll repeat it right now.
That's
Tell you
true.
what. Next week.
Okay.
Next week.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it next week.
In fact, let's get a little homework set up for Fearology because if we're going to bring the travelers of the Omnibus experience on the road to Fear Fest 2022, we need to make sure we got all our shit on point.
And with those final words, we are finally departing from the. Yes.
We got 2 other podcasts and a game store to fucking plug, man.
I never ended this show.
We're not ending this. We don't end the show yet. What the fuck?
I'm ending the topic.
We ended the topic.
No one told me.
You didn't.
Poor
that
Ethan.
segue was so masterful. He didn't even
That's
notice.
so Bob Shinedown.
Man.
It's more Edward Nickelback to me. But what do I know?
Fuck you, Timmy Godsmack.
You take that back.
I'm not the one who's so far away.
Silence Your Cell Phones is a podcast.
Thanks, David Hoobastank.
Silence Your Cell Phones
Hey,
is
actually
hosted.
like Smoobastank.
Shots fired.
Okay, you're just saying that because The Reason sucks, but there are other songs that they have that are good.
I like The Reason, actually.
The Reason is terrible, but they have other.
Go, do it. Shoot him! Shoot him again! No, we've already done it. No, what the fuck?
More guns.
Silence your cell phones! Silence your cell phones! This is a podcast of 2 people.
Kevin and Kevin showing.
Yes, and they review movies, and they're on YouTube.
Listen to them.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Okay,
oh gosh.
Now, for those of you who don't have a camera in this room right now, which is everybody who's listening,
Or I've seen the end of Reservoir Dogs.
I am the only person without a Nerf gun right
Or
now.
Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
2 of them have pullback Nerf guns with like 3 and 6 shots apiece. Meanwhile, Brady brought out the 100 drum.
I keep getting shot.
4 shots a second. Battery powered one, which that one might not have.
Who shot
battery
Mr.
power,
White?
so you may just have to beat people over the head with it.
If that's what it takes.
So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be cool like Fonzie, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the guns down. We're gonna put the guns down on the count of 3, and I swear for holy God, if any of you shoot anybody else in this room, or me, or Ethan's brother, who will now be known as Bob Shinedown. If anyone gets shot, I am peeing on them.
You.
Okay, so on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, nobody got to get peed on. That's good. Now, we've already plugged Fearology, right? Are you okay?
Yeah. It's on Anchor and Spotify.
I was kind of manic with the Silence Your Cell Phone, so if you would, Ethan, take that one over because you do it very well.
Silence Your Cell Phones is a podcast hosted by Jared and Kevin.
What are the last names?
What are
Jared, Herbert, and Kevin Showing.
Yay!
They talk about movies and TV shows and what you should and should not watch. They have live shows on YouTube every Wednesday or whenever they feel like it. Give them a listen. Again, that is Silence Your Cell Phones.
Okay, Brady, I think you've got the Whiskey and Wrestling one this week.
Our friends Michael Hill and Jason Holder host a podcast called Whiskey and Wrestling, where they talk about wrestling that happened during the previous week, and also drink some whiskey and tell you about that stuff too. They're on all the good places that you can get podcasts: Spotify, Apple, Google. I think they're on Stitcher too.
There's a bit of tension in the air because people started getting shot at this podcast.
That's very true.
Yeah, well, you're the one who started it because you always start Nerf.
You know who likes
fights.
shooting things?
Who?
Mega Man. Tune in next week.
I'm
Jay,
leaving.
you can
I'm
add
leaving.
cricket- you can add crickets,
I'm leaving that
the
pause
cricket
in there.
sound in
I'm
there.
leaving. Or it's like some sort of like vacuous sound of like the
Yeah.
eternity
A
being
tumbleweed
leaking out of
blowing
things.
by.
So before we talk about next week's episode, thank you to Gregory Spander
Oh, yeah.
Thank you,
and the
Greg.
entire
Thanks,
crew
Greg.
at MacNarb Gaming for providing us with this wonderful recording space to where we can shoot one another. Before we talk about it, we finally have an opportunity to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we've been joined tonight by Ethan's brother. What is your name, Ethan's brother? Hand him that
His real
microphone.
name. His real
What
name.
is your real name, Ethan's brother?
Speak up.
You got to get on
on
that
the
microphone.
mic.
Get on the mic.
Get on it.
My name is Dylan Skinner.
Dylan Skinner. Bullshit. It's Bob Shinedown. You go to the DMV and you get redone as Bob Shinedown. So Dylan, real
What
quick.
did he do to deserve that?
Maybe he likes Shinedown like his brother does. Do you like Shinedown?
I like it. I mean, it's all right.
It's all right. Okay,
Okay.
that's fine. Okay, something I've been wanting to do for a bit with an audience. Questions for the bus. One question, anything you want to ask.
I don't really have any questions.
Okay, well that fell over like a wet fart in church. So there you go.
You finally got an audience. How do you feel about that, Jay?
I'm okay with
You
it.
got your
Okay,
wish.
good.
We got to try. We're going to do it again one day. It's going to be fun. No, Dylan, you were put on the spot. Do not worry, brother. If you ever back in, think up some questions. We'll answer anything.
Yeah, if we were good hosts of a podcast, we would have told you before this even started, so you could be thinking this whole entire time.
Yeah, like
But we're really bad at
Nobody,
that.
nobody said we were good at this.
No.
You know, it's also like a wet fart in church.
Mega Man.
Mega Man.
And
So join us next week when we have our second chalkboard episode. This time it's going to be our top 5s in video game series/franchises.
For this episode, my name is Ethan Skinner.
My name is Timmy Offspring.
damn it, I like the Offspring too.
I like the Offspring as well. I want to be a good band, goddammit.
Okay. I'm Brady Davis.
I'm Mr. Bungle. And
We bid you a good evening, good morning, and good night.
I heard you on the wireless back in 52, lying awake, intent and turning in on you.
Hey, yo,
And I was
Bob
always
Shinedown gave me a
coming
knife.
through.